And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Today's sea ice analysis is continuing to show some ice left around St. Matthew Island, with areas of heavier ice on up towards St. Lawrence Island, especially on the north coast there, and a little bit here along the south coast of Norton Sound. And moving on to coastal water forecasts here for the south coast, looking at west winds 10 to 15 knots for the day on Sunday, southwest 10 to 15 on the central coast, and south to southeast at 10 to 15 on the north coast. Inside waters, generally variable to south winds at about 10 knots with seas 2 to 3 feet. And for Monday, inside water areas, Lynn Canal southeast at 15, winds stay light though for Stevens Passage and Clarence Strait from the south at 10. South to southeast winds at 15 knots on the south coast, southeast at 20 on the central coast, and east winds 20 to 25 knots on the north coast. Prince William Sound, western North Gulf Coast, small craft advisories tomorrow, southeast winds 25 knots, east winds 30 knots to the western North Gulf Coast, and gale warnings. Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, east to southeast winds 40 knots, 12 to 13 foot seas. Southern Cook Inlet, small craft advisories, east winds at 25 knots. And for Cook Inlet on Monday, south of the Forelands, southeast at 20, north of the Forelands though, north at 15. Small craft advisories continue for Prince William Sound for east winds at 25 knots and south or east to southeast winds 30 knots. So the eastern North Gulf Coast winds down to 20 knots here for the west side. And the Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, gale warnings become small craft advisories with the winds diminishing to 25 knots. And moving on to Kodiak Island, gale warnings on the east side there for southeast winds at 35 knots. And for Bristol Bay, even stronger gales, southeast at 40 knots. And for the Alaska Peninsula, south winds at 25 to 30 knots. And for Monday, for the peninsula, south to southeast winds at 30 knots, southeast at 30 for Bristol Bay and Kodiak Island, south to southeast winds 25 knots. Eastern Aleutians tomorrow, west-southwest winds 25 to 30 knots, Adak and Atka, west at 25 knots. And for the western Aleutians, west and northwest winds 25 to 30 knots. And for Monday, north to northwest winds at 20 to 25 knots for the areas west of Adak. And for the central Aleutians, northwest 20 to 25 knots. And for the eastern Aleutians, west to southwest winds at 15 to 25 knots. And for the southwest coast, gale warnings here all along the coastline tomorrow. East 35 knots to the Yukon Delta coast, east 45 knots to the Kuskokwim Delta coast. Otherwise, east at 30 knots for St. Lawrence Island. Small craft advisories, Norton Sound, east winds 25 knots. Northeast gales blowing across St. Matthew Island at 40 knots and southeast 25 for the Pribilofs. And for St. Paul and St. George Islands on Monday, northeast at 20, 25 knots northeast winds for St. Matthew Island. And for St. Lawrence Island, east winds of 15 knots and 20 knots out of the east for the Yukon Delta coast. 30 knots though for the Kuskokwim Delta coast and east at 20 for Norton Sound. Eastern Boulevard Sea Coast tomorrow, much lighter winds here coming in north to northeast at 10 to 15 knots, northeast at 10 on the central coast. Western Arctic coast northeast at 20, and for the Chukchi Sea, northeast winds 15 to 25. And for the Monday afternoon, or for Monday, the entire day, east to northeast winds 15 to 25 knots for the Chukchi Sea. Western Arctic coast, brisk wind advisories, east winds at 30 knots, east at 20 for the central coast, and the east side looking at easterlies at 15.